What do we do if we have a text file with student, quarter, and class, and we need a report that lists all the classes for each student? Well, there's not just one way to do it. In this video, we'll see how to do it with Power Query, and in the next two videos, we'll see how to do it with DAX and dynamic arrays. Now, anytime you have a problem to solve in Excel, since we have different methods to solve these problems, we have to think about which method is the best. Now, in this video, we have a text file, and we want this report. But later, we're going to get a different text file, and we want this report to update. Since we're importing text files, it sounds like the perfect tool for this is Power Query. Here's the folder. You can download it in the link below the video and then unzip it. And inside, there's two text files. We're going to start with Group 1 text file. To import text files, we go to Data, Get and Transform is our Power Query, and then we use From Text. We can navigate to our location, select Group 1, click Import. It's going to ask us what the delimiter is. We have Tab as our delimiter. We want to click Transform Data. This opens up the Power Query window. We want to name our query, something like Student Class Report, and Enter. We do not need change type, so I X that out. We want to promote the first row as headers. So up in the upper left corner, I click the drop-down arrow and say Use first row as headers. It added these two steps. Now we want to group because there's many duplicates. If a particular student took 3 classes in quarter 3, we want to group all of those classes together. So we select Student, hold Shift, click on Quarter, and we want to group, Home Ribbon Group. It's also in Transform. We can also right-click, Group By. It has the selected columns listed here. And what this means is it will deliver a unique list of all the combinations from both columns. Down here is our aggregation. We're going to rename this column Classes. The operation for the time being is please just group all the rows together. This will give us a table with all of the records for a particular student in a particular quarter. When I click OK, I have a new column with a table. So this student in quarter 3, well, those are all the records grouped together. But what we want is we want the class column, and then we want to join them together with a comma and a space. Now let's come up to the formula bar, click the drop down. Table.Group is the M code function that we use for grouping. The first argument in Table.Group lists the previous step because we're transforming that step into something new. The third column contains the 2 columns we're grouping by. The third argument is a list within a list. That's what the double curly brackets means. Now we have only one calculation or aggregation, and so we only have one pair of curly brackets inside the outside curly brackets. That's the name of the column, and this is the calculation. Now look at that. I misspelled this, so I'm going to backspace. So the first part inside the curly bracket is the name of the column. Then we have the each keyword. That allows us to make a calculation for each row. Now we don't need anything after each because we're going to change our calculation. So I'm going to delete that. And we want to extract the column from this table. And the way we do that is we use our square brackets. And the field name from down here is inside the square brackets. Each will take the whole column. And so for each row, we will get a list of these classes instead of a table. Now we have to very carefully curly bracket, curly bracket. We only have one calculation, so we have classes and our row by row calculation. Then we close off Table.Group. When I hit Enter, now we have a list. There's the list of classes that we need to list horizontally. So we'll amend our formula up in the formula bar using the Text.Combine. We could see the first argument. Oh, look at that. Text as a list, which is exactly what we have. The second argument is separator or delimiter. So very carefully, comma, and then in double quotes, comma, space. After double quotes, we'll put close parentheses for Text.Combine. There's our one calculation or aggregation for each row. When I hit Enter, now we have exactly what we want. Now, actually, let's put a data type. And for the list within a list, right there, now we can do comma, type, text. and then click at the end and enter. And now we have our report. We can go up to close and load to. As a table on this existing sheet, that's fine. Click OK. There's our report. Over here is our query. Now we've looked at our report, and we have a new file. So we want to refresh this report with that new file. Now we're very careful to put the new text file in the same location. And we can look at the different names of the file. In this case, there's only a 2 that's different. So we come back over to our query, double-click to open and edit. And the trick is in applied steps, here's all of our steps, we want to look at source. Now we could go up to the formula bar. You can also click the gear icon. And if you needed to browse for that new file at a different location, you could do that here. I'm going to click OK. I want to come up to the formula bar. There's the csv.document and the file.contents function. And inside is the file path. Let's edit the file path, changing the 1 to 2. And when I hit enter, the new data has arrived. If we look at the end result here, it's changed. When I click close and load, now we have our new report. All right, here's your bonus Power Query tip. Notice we had to edit and go back into the query and add a new file path. Well, if we scroll down, highlight, move, what I'd like to do is link this report to whatever file path I put here. Now, we're going to have to get a little tricky here because we're going to convert this to an Excel table and bring it into the Power Query editor and then point this query to that result. The problem is when you have a file path like this, we can't directly put it into another query because there may be different privacy settings on each query, and we get an error. But here's how we'll get around the error. Instead of bringing the text directly into this query, we'll import this and do the very first step of bringing the file into Power Query. So we'll land the file here, and then we'll point the beginning part of this query to that landed file. In this way, we don't get that error. So I'm going to convert this to a table. Control-T and Enter. I want to name this something smart. I named it Folder Path Table. Now we go up to the Data Ribbon tab. This is a table now, so we click From Table to bring it into the Power Query window. I don't need this step right here. I want to close and load. We'll come back to this later. Close and load to. Only create a connection. Click OK. Now we can double-click to open either one of these, because over on the left, we can see both of our queries. Now let's go back to Student Class Reports Source. And notice we use CSV documents, and there it is, file contents. So everything in file contents, we're going to take that from Student Class Report Query and put it over here. Then we'll put the name of this query right into csv.document. Select Folder Path Query. Now this is a table, and we first need to extract that text item. Now, we're going to do a type of lookup, and we need to first look up the row and then the column to extract the text item. Now in Power Query, row 1 is not really row 1, it's row 0. So Power Query is base 0. Now let's get rid of this step. Click that red X. And in source, that's a table. If we come to the end, the way we can extract a row is we use curly brackets. That's a positional index operator. And if I put a 0, that little construction right there says get whatever the first row is from that table. So when I hit Enter, now I have a record. There's the field name and the text item. I come to the end, and now I use my field access operators and type the field name. When I hit Enter, there's my text item. Our next step is to use file.contents, open parentheses, and then at the end, close parentheses and Enter. Oh, and look at this. This error is quite polite. It says the device is not ready. That's because the folder path, which was D, is a plugin, and it's not plugged in. No problem. Let's click Close and Load. From the drop-down, I'm going to select G. So now when I open this, double-click. You can already see the icon there is saying, hey, we found it. There it is. We have our two queries. That folder path name, if I click once, hit F2 to put it in edit mode, Control-C, because we need to use that query name, escape, up in Student Class Report, Source, Formula Bar, and very carefully, there we go, Control V. So now Student Class Report Query is pointing to something that sits in the Excel spreadsheet. When I hit Enter, close and load, now it's looking at Group 2. I want to point to a different file. I'm going to point to Group 1 text file. It didn't update because we have to refresh. Data, refresh all. And our report is updated. All right, so however you want to do it, you want to put the file path in the Excel sheet or edit it directly in the query. We can definitely create a report and have it update when we get a new text file. All right, if you want to learn more about Power Query, here's a great video. And if you want to learn more about the technical side of Power Query's M code, here's a great video.